7 is Audit Bids Insurance Committee Report Presentation, Councilman Dr. David Curlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Number 7.
The Audit Bids Insurance Committee met on Wednesday, November 20th. We had several items which require action on the part of the council, and I think we'll start with the first item at this time, and that's the audit results and annual financial audit report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2013. And I believe Matt Braswell's here from Martin Starnes and Associates, and would you like to make that presentation at this time, Matt?
Yes, sir.
Wonderful, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Thank you for allowing me to take some time out of your evening to go over your 2013 audited financial statement highlights, kind of hit on the points that you need to know on where the city is financially and kind of what an independent third party, which our audit firm does and provides the audit. We issued an unmodified, clean opinion, which this is the best opinion you can receive, which means your financial statements are materially correct. We had no findings or question costs. We had no internal control deficiencies or material weaknesses. And we had very cooperative staff, Melody, Wendell, Ed, everyone in your finance department, management, everywhere we were able to get everything we needed on a timely manner, able to get your report submitted to the Local Government Commission on time this year, and everything worked very smoothly, very timely this year, and it was a pleasure to work with them. This next slide is your general fund summary comparing 2012 to 2013. Your revenues outpaced your expenditures in 2013 by around $5.5 million. And your revenues came in under budget around $250,000, and your expenditures came in under budget around $3.9 million. The next slide is kind of how the Local Government Commission calculates your available fund balance, and this is how they look at your financial stability, your basically how they compare you to other municipalities of your size and similar operations. They take your total fund balance, less your non-spendable, which is your inventory and your prepaid items, less your stabilization by state statute, and this number is basically your accounts receivable. It is money that you have not received in yet that is not available for appropriation. Comes up to your available fund balance. This next slide shows your fund balance position in your general fund. You had total fund balance of around $20.9 million, less your required reservations, which is your non-spendables and your stabilization by state statute of a little over $7 million, leaves you with an available fund balance of a little over $13.8 million in available fund balance, which this is the way the Local Government Commission will compare you to other municipalities, as we'll see on the next slide, is you had this available fund balance is a little over 25% of your expenditures plus transfers out. So you have around 25% available fund balance. The minimum required by the state, or what they do not want you to go less than, is 8%, which would be $4.4 million. And your available fund balance in the prior year was a little over 11.2, which come up with a percentage of around 20%, a little over 20%. So you had an increase in your available fund balance of around $2.6 million during the current year. This is kind of a reconciliation of how you had an increase in your available fund balance of $2.6 million. Your current year revenues outpaced your expenditures by around 5.5. You had net transfers out of 2.9, and then various other adjustments, inventory, and other miscellaneous items of around 16,000. Come up with your increase in available fund balance of 2.6. And an item of note, you had appropriated a little over $1 million of your fund balance, which you were able to add a little over $2.6 million to fund balance. So that's about a $3 million $3.6 million swing in the other direction. And then this next slide shows your fund balance, your available fund balance over the past 10 years. And it shows the minimum required by the local commission at the 8% mark compared to where your board policy is between the 15%, 15% and the 12% there. And then compared to the other municipalities of your similar size had around, and the latest data that is available was 2012 numbers. So the 2012 municipalities that's in your similar population group was a little under 32%, and you're at 25%. So you're within that range there. And the other cities that are kind of in your population group is Concord, Fayetteville, Greenville, High Point, and Rocky Mount. To kind of give you other cities in your population group with electric utilities. Then this next slide is internally generated based on your management team, Ed, and your finance department, kind of a preliminary plan to show your general fund, how over the year you've gradually grew your fund balance, and then over the next 3 years, kind of how you're anticipating to use that fund balance to fund the self-insurance fund and the needed amounts to balance your general fund budget. Then this next slide kind of shows if that plan, if all things constant, will kind of show you how your fund balance will be used over the next 3 years, kind of where you will be at. But you'll still be over your board policy there. The next slide kind of show the breakdown of your revenues in your general fund. Your property taxes make up 50% of that. Your other taxes and licenses, which is your sales tax, franchise tax, other taxes make up 31%. Your sales and services make up 7%, and other revenues make up around 12%. And this is pretty much comparable to the prior year. Next 3 slides will go into show your top 3 revenue sources. Property tax increased around 2%. Had a tax rate increase from 52 to 53, and a little bit of increase in your assessed value for the 2013 year. Sales tax had a 2.2% decrease, mainly due to reduced hold harmless payments that you were receiving from the county. You had a reduced of around $400,000 in your hold harmless payment, but sales tax from the state was actually up this year from about $160,000 from the state. Your sales tax increased, so that's how the decrease happened. Next slide, your sales and services had an increase, a fairly substantial increase, and this was due to the completion of the conference center, which this was housed in your capital project fund. And now it is in your, since it is a full operation, it is in your general fund. So the $800,000 worth of reimbursements from the Gastonia Tourism Development Authority is shown here. So that's where you get that increase, or it would be relatively comparable to the prior year. Next slide. This will kind of show the breakdown of your expenditures in the general fund. Your public safety function accounted for 52%. Public Works around 10%, General Government 16%, Debt Service accounted for 11%, Culture and Rec was around 9%, and your other functions is about 1%. Your expenditures totaled around $49.9 million. And this is pretty consistent with the prior year as well. And kind of show a little bit more detail on your top 3 expenditure functions. Your General Government function decreased around 4%, mainly due to the decrease was related to salaries and benefits. Your Public Safety function had a little under 1% decrease from the prior year, and mainly due to reduced salaries and benefits expenditures as well in the current year. Your public works function, decreased to about 5.2 million or 9.2%, mainly due to most of all the call centers in there, your PAL bill function, your traffic and engineering function, all the call centers were held down there. Spending was held pretty flat in those functions. This next slide is just kind of this is also something that your management keeps internally to look at since governmental accounting is on modified or budgetary basis, cash in, cash out. This is something good to look at. Kind of makes your enterprise funds similar to a governmental fund, say your general fund, to where you can look at it. And it kind of shows and tells you kind of what your available fund balance is in your electric, water and sewer, stormwater, transit, and solid waste. You had around 7.2 million available for appropriation in your electric, around 2.9 in your water and sewer, 187,000 in your stormwater, 200,000 roughly in your transit, and your solid waste at around 400,000. And kind of as a percentage, with that 8% mark that we talked about earlier, kind of shows how much you have available there. So you have anywhere from 9%, around 9%, 9 to 10% available for appropriation in your enterprise funds. This next slide kind of shows your debt position, how much debt you have outstanding for the city. You had around $95.7 million, 95.7 outstanding debt for the 2013 year. This was a substantial decrease from the prior year. The prior year you had about a little over almost $104 million, and you paid off some debt early in the 2013 year. This kind of shows you a breakdown of your general obligation bonds, limited obligation bonds, and kind of where your debt is housed. And this next slide kind of shows the breakdown of your debt service obligations for the city, and from about your debt's kind of going to stay constant for the next three or so years, and then starting in 2017, it will gradually decrease by about 9 to 10%, and will gradually fall off there. Any questions, concerns, comments?
Mr. Gallagher?
Let me see, on slide 8. That 1,038,000, was that appropriated for the insurance? The fund balance?
On slide 8,
Yes, sir.
my slide 8 is the distribution plan. Is that?
The fund balance position, general fund?
Oh, okay. That would, Melanie, let me look here back at
That
I would-
$1 million was there was money budgeted for your health self-insurance fund as well to balance your general fund.
Okay.
I knew some of it was, I wasn't sure how much.
And then carryover purchase orders from one year to the next would make up the difference.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, one other thing.
Yes.
This is really for Ed. On 714, page 14. The whole harmless decrease from the county on a sales tax of $210,789. Can we dispute that at all?
Yeah.
I mean, do we have any say, or we just take it?
The way the statutes are set up, the county can determine whether the method of distribution, they've got a couple choices. And so they've done this to us twice, basically. Once a few years ago, and we had a negotiation, and we actually had a deal to a certain point. They took a lot of our money. And then when the state changed some sales tax numbers and also this is the last year of it. So we will now be down to where we are. Unless something else changes, they can't adjust that formula any worse on us right now. The state always could, but right now, we cannot, the statute says that they get the
Question. Do we bill them for our hazmat for the fire department, and do we bill them for the SWAT team for the police?
They have their own, we have we don't bill, for police services, we don't bill each other, we go back and forth.
Because I think we should look to an increase of $210,000 somewhere where we bill them.
We will get some additional money in the stormwater for county facilities and the school facilities.
I thought I heard.
It's a one-way street.
Yes, sir, Mr. Kemp.
In actuality, Ed, that increase is somewhat offset by also the increase in the tax collection, correct?
Yeah, the way it has worked for us, on the tax collection, we had a good deal at zero.
Correct.
Now we have an okay deal that we just agreed to. So it's better than the deal that we thought we had.
Mhm.
And so our budget situation is better, but not as good as zero.
Correct. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Just for clarification, years ago, I don't know how many years ago, but years ago, didn't the state withhold all sales tax?
Yeah,
And they have the right to do that?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, if you look at that one chart, that shows us the fund balance chart was so low, when Governor Easley, was there, this is on page 7-9, when we were at 4.9%, they withheld, I think, utility franchise, sales tax, there were a number of revenues that they withheld from us. And the city sued the state, and it was really, because the state had a crisis, and they just took our
Right.
revenues.
And they still can do that?
That's correct.
I mean, that is still on the books?
They passed, well, actually afterwards, they passed some legislation that says that they really shouldn't do that. But I think we just saw the state legislature almost take the airport at Charlotte. They did take the water system from the city of Asheville. And as people would always say, the state legislature creates us as a charter. We're a charter of the state legislature. They can create us, abolish us, change the rules, make us do more with less. They're our mama and daddy. And same thing with the county. I mean, the local governments are not even mentioned in the state constitution. We are, they just says, any local governments, they
So the only way to do that would be to change the Constitution of North Carolina to something like Florida or Virginia, where you have home rule for local governments enshrined in the state constitution, and that's a very steep hill.
Well, it's gonna be a steep hill, you're right, but we have always, I think, advocated for home rule,
Yes.
right?
The legislative agenda. Yes.
Right, because of some of the issues that some of the legislation sessions take. So I just wanted to clarify that in my mind too, that they still have that opportunity to take whatever they wanna take. And but knowing that, we have to safeguard our assets for the city.
Right, and to do some of that, work together as cities, because they can pick us off one at a time.
Right.
As a group, including municipalities and other organizations, is important. The other thing is our relationship with our own delegation. If we have a warm, friendly relationship with our delegation, we're less likely to have happen what happened in Charlotte and Asheville. So we need to make sure that we have good relations with our elected officials.
Any other questions?
You trying to tell us to play nice?
Be nice. Any other questions? Matt?
No, thank you.
Dave?
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you. Good evening.
That was a great job. We appreciate your report, and we appreciate the city staff because of the good results, because we had a increase in our fund balance. So that was very good. So, Moving along to the,
Excellent.
excellent, excellent. Moving along to the second item, okay, which does require action by council tonight. I'm going to let Ash Smith go ahead and present this, if you don't mind, Ash.
Okay. If, as you will recall, the city increased its deductible from $25,000 to $100,000 per claim for claims this year. And when you get into that territory, the League of Municipalities recommends that you have a policy on settling claims. There was a lawsuit from Greensboro in 2000 that said if you don't have a consistent policy on how you settle claims, it could be a violation of equal protection. So we looked at policies from Fayetteville, Durham, and Raleigh, and put this policy together, and the committee did recommend 3-0 to adopt the policy. Glad to answer any questions.
Questions? Comments?
So I'll make that in the form of a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there other discussion? All in favor? please?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Ash.
Doctor?
The third item was one that I recommended. We hear a report from HR with regard to the health insurance fund, get an update on that. And I know Larry's here, and I know Judy's here, and I thought either one of them might be willing and certainly better prepared to speak to that. We have some accompanying information in your packet that you can refer to, and that is located at exhibits, I believe it's 730, 731. So if we could just kind of, Larry, get a brief update of where we're at, and then I know maybe within the next month or so, we had some follow-up questions that we presented that you're going to come back to us and give us some more details on.
Yes, sir, that's right. The committee asked us to bring back some more current information going forward, and we plan to do that and try to keep you informed about how the healthcare fund is going. As you can see from the exhibit, I don't know exactly how to express it. I think we're cautiously optimistic that we won't have to put more money into the fund than we already anticipated, but I think that anticipation is that we might have to ask to move another, I think it was $400,000 at the end of this year, based on the claims history. I can say we get our claims reports on Tuesdays, and the one we got today was a good one. It was less than half for the last week. It was about $44,000, and on average right now we're running about $92,000 a week in claims.
That was Thanksgiving.
That's right. People try to stay out of the hospital.
Yeah.
We are continuing our wellness programs. We're looking for additional ones to implement that we will talk with you about as we go into the budget time here pretty soon. Of course, those are things that we hope are going to make a long-term difference. They're not things that you can really quantify, certainly not this early, and may take several years at least.
Any questions for Larry at the moment? We just, want to give you this kind of this mid-season update, just to kind of get an idea of are we okay, or how far out of sync are we with what was budgeted. So, but you do have a list of questions that we presented to HR listed in the summary of the committee's deliberations, and so you can see what we're asking of them. These include things like results of the employee health fair, results of programs implemented to encourage healthy living, what programs are working and what programs are not working, what suggestions for improvement to the programs can be offered going forward, and what other mid-year opportunities could be implemented next fiscal year. We kind of wanted, again, to get this information so that we have a little bit of a forward thought pattern on what else can be done now before we get too far down the road, as well as how are we going to start to prepare in next year's budget, and what impact will that have on the employees. So, it's always good to be thinking about this in a proactive way instead of a reactive way. So, But that was just for information only. I thank you for your report.
Thank you, sir.
And that ends my report.
Thank you.
One quick question, Your Honor. Larry, Judy, one quick
Well,
question on this. This is, I think, more derived from questions from a number of our constituents, which I believe a number of our elected body here have fielded. And that is, what, if any, is there an impact from the Obamacare legislation on what we foresee in our premiums? I know I've asked Judy a number of times over the last few months, you know, where are we standing and what are the new developments? And is there anything of a cautionary note as we go into the new budget session on what those implications might be to the, obviously, very dynamic situation, to the best of your ability?
That's true, and we feel like we're in good shape as far as being able to comply with the act. Again, it does change regularly. There are new regulations come out. Some of the regulations that come out, they decide not to enforce for a while. So I can say presently we feel comfortable that we're in compliance. We're hoping that we won't have any negative surprises going forward.
Thank you.
Okay, the other? Thank you both. Okay, and that's your report, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so item 8 is the Facilities Management Committee report. Mayor Pro Tem Brenda Craig, please, Ms. Craig.
Thank you, sir.
Number 8.
The Facility Management Committee report from Tuesday, November the 12th at 5:45. And agenda item was item number 1. As we move forward on requesting that the staff sell off as much of the surplus property that we've had to get out of the real estate business, we've had an offer to purchase city property at 704 Logan Street for $750, 0.09 acres. This offer is subject to the upset bid process. The committee voted unanimously 2-0 to recommend the property to be sold for the amount of $750. 2-0 was the committee's vote because Councilman Pearsall was excused absent from that meeting. So that's why you see a 2-0 recommendation. I put that in the form of a motion.
Here's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion? Jane?
Item number 2 is very similar. Offer to purchase city property, 0.25 acres at 119 West Bradley for $750. This offer would be subject to the upset bid process also. Committee was 2-0 to recommend the property be sold for the amount of $750, and I make that in a motion.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor? All right, item 3.
Item number 3, it was the cell tower at Fire Station number 8, and Myra, you feel like you could come up and explain that a little bit better?
This is only for an option to build one. Right now, it will be a $1,000 option up for renewal for 1 year, but it's my understanding that they do have plans to start building. So then we'll go under a contract up through the upset bid process for like a 25-year lease period.
And this was brought to the committee in July, and we postponed it for a better negotiated terms. And so we did get some better terms. The terms increased the rent to $1,200 for that. A month. A month.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, sir. So we recommend that we accept that proposal at this point, with the understanding that there could go through the upset bid process. And the committee voted 2-0 for that. I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? I believe we just got the package on that too from you and I did this week, last week. No other discussion, all in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Myra.
Thank
Offer to accept property at 306 North Chester Street. There is a picture in your agenda packet of where that property is. It is located at the North Chester and South York Street. Lance Brenner is making the offer to donate the property to the city. It is the property that sits on the corner coming up Chester and York. And it's a
Behind the
gateway.
liquor store.
It's a gateway into the center city area. While there are no immediate plans for the parcel, it is potentially opportunity to both clean up, because if you know where that building is, it needs, it's an eyesore that certainly could be cleaned up. It's a
Brenda?
deteriorating building, and it would aesthetically enhance the gateway to downtown. We would have to demolish it, or when we chose to demolish it, the cost is estimated at $25,000. Staff recommends accepting the partial, and if approved, would identify funds to demolish the existing building. There are no strings, there would be no covenants or anything in the agreement that we could not sell that property. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. So that was a discussion at the committee meeting, that if we accepted it, are we obligated to keep it? And there would be no obligation to keep it. We would just accept it as donated property.
Got a motion?
Two questions. One, is this the building with the crack in it?
Yes.
Okay, and
Yes.
two, is it gonna taste $25,000 to rip that thing down?
That's what it's estimated at. And,
Flip on try to.
yeah, Flip can answer that.
Is he gonna use sign language?
Possibly.
Maybe. But I will say that we did have an asbestos
Yeah, it's in here.
confirmation that there was no asbestos in it.
Yeah, it's-
Correct, and we hope that would come in well below 25,000, but we tried to be conservative on that estimate. We
What
hope
is-
closer to 15.
Do we know what the value of the property is with the building gone?
I didn't hear that.
I can get you that information. We did have it at the committee. I'm thinking.
Do we know any real estate people?
Say get me on GIS, I tell you, but
I
not off the
used
top
to.
of my head.
I used to know some.
That'll probably be, the demolition would probably be a lot cheaper
I
if
think it would.
Walt would let us use his truck.
That's a good idea.
We could do
Be a
that.
real problem.
I think we could
I think it's-
negotiate that.
a
But
good
anyway,
idea.
the committee did vote 2-0 to accept the property, and then before any funds are spent on the property, that the funding source would have to be identified first. Okay. So it's with that caveat from the committee that the committee and the council would have to know where those funds were coming from before they are spent.
And that's your motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion anymore? All in favor of the motion? Thank you.
Item number 5 is part of the